some of the good morning and happy Friday. Hopefully you're all doing well today. We've got a ton to cover today because there's so much going on in the world of GLP-1s. Type 1 diabetics. Type 1 diabetics have been waiting for data on GLP-1s. Did you know type 1 diabetics can be overweight too? That they need treatment for obesity too? Well, what does that mean when a type 1 diabetic needs to take medically assisted weight loss drugs like Tirzepatide? We finally have some data. We've got some new ways that employers can get access to GLP-1 medications for their employees. I'm going to talk about why I love this for access, but I hate it for patients. And then there's all sorts of other stuff to get into. So we're going to roll into it this morning. But as you're jumping in, wherever you're watching, my ask of you is that you would hit the subscribe button, because that is what trains the algorithm to know that this content is useful, that this content is helpful. So when you like, when you comment, when you follow or subscribe, depending on what platform you're watching on today, those are all things that train the algorithm to push this content out. So wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, those things are always appreciated and in a very easy form of advocacy, because what we do here at On the Pen is we bring you patient-centric obesity medicine news from the patient perspective so that you can have better, more competent and confident conversations with your doctor. So welcome. Thank you for being here. We're going to get going here. I'm going to roll the bumper because we're going to do just kind of an impromptu podcast today on this Friday morning.
Welcome to the On the Pen podcast with your host, Dave Knapp.
We're going to get into it this morning. Welcome. As you're jumping in, I just want to say good morning to Calamity Jane. I want to say good morning to Susan, to Michael. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, DJ, Christine, Shelley. And I see you all in the chat here over on TikTok as well. We're going to get into what I think is one of the bigger stories of the day that no one else is covering. And I think this is a big one because many, many people within the OTP community have come to me, especially recently, it seems, saying, hey, Dave, you know, I'm a type 1 diabetic, or my spouse is a type 1 diabetic. And listen, we'd really love to see some data on the use of GLP-1 medications in type 1 diabetes. And there just hasn't been a lot of data there. There hasn't been a lot of information to share. And so this is what gets me particularly excited for those folks, is we had a study that came out yesterday, and this is all linked over in our link tree. And you can get to our Substack by going to obesity.news. If you just type that into your browser, obesity.news is where you can get this story, along with the other stories that we're going to cover today here at On the Pen. But a study dropped yesterday from the American Diabetes Association. And as I was kind of teeing this up, every week, people in the type 1 diabetes community who are also members of the On the Pen community reach out and want to know what there is for data. They carry, listen, type 1 diabetics carry the same food noise, the same problems with obesity, the same exhaustion that we all live with, but very little support when it comes to the obesity side. And so this study, I think, presents some real hope. So it's a very small phase 2 study in only 24 adults, right? So this is a very small subset. So I want to lay it out first of all and say this is 24 adults with type 1 diabetes, all of them with a BMI above 30. And half of the group was given Tirzepatide. Half of the group was given placebo for 12 weeks. So small study in terms of the number of patients that were on this study, and a short study in terms of the duration. But the results were pretty spectacular. So we'll start this off by saying we acknowledge that this is a small phase 2 study, but as you'll see, this is the kind of data that leads to bigger studies and hopefully more hope for our friends living with type 1 diabetes. So the Tirzepatide group over that 12 weeks lost an average of nearly 23 pounds in the 12 weeks. So 23 pounds in 12 weeks, or 8.8% of their body weight in 12 weeks. This is type 1 diabetics with a BMI above 30. And every single person in the Tirzepatide arm lost at least 5% over that 12 weeks. So 5% body weight lost in 12 weeks is pretty spectacular for type 1 diabetics. Now, when you look, and almost half of those folks lost 10% in 12 weeks. Those are huge numbers. Now, the interesting thing is when you look over at the placebo arm, the weight barely moved. It barely moved at all. So this is the same pattern that we see across other clinical trials for GLP-1s, like the SURMOUNT trial that took place for Tirzepatide. And so for type 1 diabetics, this matters even more because of what insulin does to the body. When you're reliant on insulin and you are cranking insulin into your body all the time, insulin's number one job is to store energy. So if you are constantly injecting yourself, or if you're not diabetic and you're constantly spiking your insulin levels, it makes it a very difficult environment to lose weight. So Tirzepatide actually broke that cycle for a lot of the type 1 diabetics in this study, because the total daily insulin requirements dropped on average by 24 units. So 24 fewer units of insulin required daily. And the placebo arm, again, saw no real meaningful changes. So A1C improved, which obviously in a type 1 diabetic is more of a marker that reduction in insulin, that the reduction in the insulin requirement kept the A1C stable and didn't cause a bunch of chaos or instability in the treatment of their type 1 diabetes. And so this is really, I think, positive information. And again, it is not the type of information that's going to change a whole lot, but it is data. First of all, it's phase 2 data that you can take to your doctor and discuss. So really, I encourage anybody within the sound of my voice to go to obesity.news and put your email address in and subscribe to the emails and find this article and share it with your endocrinologist, share it with your primary care doctor. So the study to the American Diabetes Association is actually linked right in the article. So if they want to explore the data on their own, they can. But this is data, and it's also the type of data that leads to greater studies, larger populations, longer duration, all of that stuff, which is very positive, again, for our friends living with type 1 diabetes. So this is amazing news for those with type 1. If you're somebody living with type 1, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. In fact, I think I'm kind of missing some here. But I know that so many of you in the OTP community have been inquiring about this, so it feels good to be able to bring you some information. Now, I want to also, as sort of a housekeeping note, let you know that I just recorded a podcast earlier this week with another podcast called the Juicebox Pod. And the Juicebox Podcast is a type 1 diabetes podcast. I've got the audio for that, and I will be throwing that up on the audio platform within the coming days. So make sure you check out otplinks.com is the best. Anytime we mention something that requires a link, whether it's our Substack or whether it's our podcast or one of our social media channels, just know that you can go to otplinks.com. Pretty easy to remember. otplinks.com is going to take you to all of the information that we have on resources for patients living with diabetes, or in terms of getting you connected to products that we're talking about, or resources, social media channels, etc. Now, this is a really excellent piece of news today, too, that was first published by our friend Madison Muller over at Bloomberg. Madison has been a friend of On the Pen for a couple of years now. Actually, as a side note, last time I went to New York City, I was there to do a video. If you've ever caught it, it's a really great video from Health Magazine, health.com. did a wonderful piece on the pen and what I've been doing with my own personal health journey, et cetera. And I got to take my 2 oldest boys to New York City. Madison was kind enough to invite us over to the Bloomberg building, and we got to do a tour of the Bloomberg building, and my boys got to sit in the broadcast chairs of the Bloomberg News studio. So it was a very cool experience. I don't know if I ever shared that with you all, but that was a really cool thing. So we love Madison over at Bloomberg. She does a great job covering the news here. And she got this story today, which is really big because if you've ever talked to your employer and had your employer, because one of the things we've been telling you for 2 years plus, almost 3 years now, is we've been telling you, hey, it's really important that if you want to get access to GLP-1s for obesity through your health insurance, that starts with conversations with who? Your employer, right? You got to talk to your employer because your employer is the one that sponsors your health plan for most people out there, unless you're on Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, et cetera, or you're doing Marketplace. You're likely getting your insurance through your employer, and they're the ones that pick the plans, and they're the ones that will have to ultimately make the decision to opt in or to not opt in to obesity coverage on your healthcare plan. So if you go to fill your Wegovy or go to fill your Zepbound at the pharmacy and there's no option to get it covered, that's a conversation with your employer. Now, the employers push back on that and say, hey, oftentimes the health insurance plans, the pharmacy benefit managers don't offer a obesity plan, or they simply don't offer one that's affordable for employers to opt into. Now, this news article is for you if that's what your employer's been saying. So starting January 1st of 2026, Wegovy and Zepbound will actually be offered through a company called Waltz Health. Waltz Health is a digital company that focuses on helping employers buy medication at real and predictable prices. And employers will pay a fixed amount upfront with no fees, no rebates, none of the PBM gimmicks, no hidden deals with the pharmacy benefit managers like CVS Caremark did a little bit earlier this year, pushed everybody off of Zepbound and onto Wegovy. No closed door agreements, nothing like that, just straightforward purchase price that lets them offer coverage to obesity medicine like Zepbound and Wegovy without playing the exhausting and costly game that the system has forced them into for years. So what's amazing about this is there's a direct price that your employer can go to with Waltz Health, and they can opt in right away or not to offering obesity medicine through Waltz Health and pay a negotiated fee. So there's an option, right? If you've been told by your employer that there is no option, know that there is now an option. And you can send the article. Again, this is an article that we have up on our Substack. We produce articles on a weekly basis, sometimes 3, 4, 5 articles a week, sometimes just a couple of articles a week. Depends on what's going on in the news. But again, it's all in support of our goal and our mission here at On the Pen to provide you as patients with information that empowers you to have more competent and confident conversations with your doctor. And in this case, more competent and confident conversations with your employer. Because if your employer says there's just no option, you can kick this article over to them right now. You can go to obesity.news, and it's the article entitled "Your Boss Might Soon Buy Your Wegovy and Zepbound Directly." And you can send this to them, and they can learn about how Waltz Health is now offering a sort of an adjunct program where they can pay cash to add obesity coverage for their employers. So this is an option that I would be talking to them about right now, today. Flip this over to them, because this is really another way that is circumventing the system, right? I think it was our friend Michael Clanton, who's often in the comments of these videos, who pointed out, the drug companies are having to get creative about getting these drugs to be covered in the same way that patients have had to be creative about how to afford them and how to get them. And so everybody is trying to find a way to get these medications into the hands of the people who need them the most. Of course, we've had a lot of great news in recent days. Thank you for the follow over on TikTok. As you can see that thing behind me going nuts. I appreciate the follows. Everybody's having to get creative here. Now, let me tell you, this is all the positive things and how this affects accessibility to these medications in a positive way. But I do want to acknowledge there's a very real reason why I also hate this. I hate this because let's say you're a small company and you want to add obesity coverage. Have you ever worked in a small company where where you stay with the job? It's a good job generally, but there's a lot of dysfunction because it's either a small family-owned business or the dynamic of the boss is just weird. Just weird things happen in small companies that don't happen oftentimes in the larger companies. And so one of the things that I worry about, because I have actually had bosses in previous jobs who have talked to me about my weight, who have recommended that I go on certain medications like phentermine for weight, way overstepping, way inappropriate, way over the line. But these things happen in small businesses, right? In a way that they just don't tend to happen in larger businesses. Now, I don't really want my employer to know that they've opted into a program for their small company and just have it be patently obvious who's on an obesity medicine. I think that poses just more bias, more the potential for more bias, more stigma, and for employers to be holding something over your head. So for that reason, I hate it. But I do love it because ultimately at the end of the day, it's going to expand access. But wouldn't it be nice if we could just get insurance companies to cover the medication that we need to treat our chronic disease the way that they cover anything else, and to have no stigma attached, not to have to be doing something special to accommodate somebody with a specific disease, just have it because it's the right thing to do. That would be the ideal situation. Unfortunately, like Michael pointed out, these companies have got to be finding creative ways to get coverage to patients. And just like patients have had to find a way to really just get medication on their own, right? Everybody's getting creative in this kind of environment. So those are the two main stories. I want to get to a couple of questions. I've got CJ who has a question. Does your employer have access to your prescription name and info? What about privacy for people who don't want their employer to know what meds they're on or purchasing directly? How does this work? Yeah, so in a traditional environment, that's pretty insulated, pretty protected. Obviously, they know the cost of, the plans, and there are reimbursements, but it's a little bit more tricky with other diseases to really pinpoint who's who or where the spend is coming from. This really does create an other situation, and that's sort of what I was just touching on in terms of where I see this to be maybe perhaps a little bit problematic. So a little frustrating to be sure, in terms of just creating an other situation, which I hate for people. But at the end of the day, I think we're in a position, most of us, that will take what we can get, right? At this point, if it means living longer, I think most of us will take it, even if it means somebody being able to deduct who's on the pen, so to speak, and who's not. I want to take a moment just to thank our sponsors who make this happen. We've got Shed. If you're looking for access to quality care, quality compounded medications or branded medications to treat the chronic disease of obesity, if you're looking for coaching, wraparound care, supplementation that helps around that, check out Shed. If you're looking to get access, you've maybe had your insurance drop access to your GLP-1, you could look at our sponsors, Claimable, who help to get patients back on their medications that were once covered. They basically give you a tool to fight insurance companies. They've got about a 50% track record of getting people back on their GLP-1s. And then our friends over at Shape'a, who have the numberless scale. If you're somebody like me who has a really broken relationship with the numbered scale, they offer the numberless scale that helps you zoom out and look at patterns instead of looking at the day-to-day fluctuation on the scale. So those are our three main sponsors of the podcast. And I would just love it if you would go check them out at OTP Links and check out the special savings that they have offered over there for you. Again, all of that is at otplinks.com. So thank you for checking them out. Another question here. I heard you mention that PCP needs to use your starting weight when dealing with a prior authorization for insurance. Well, Cigna and my PCP say I'm no longer pre-diabetic. My A1C went 5.7 to 5.2. I would say that, pre-diabetes has never been an indication for insurances to cover GLP-1s. It's not like an actual FDA indication. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be. I mean, I believe that it should be, but it actually isn't. And so that's really one of those that's probably a little bit more discretionary. That said, that might be the perfect example for somebody to jump in and check out Claimable. Because if you were getting it and now the medicine has helped you get your A1C down, there's probably a pretty strong case for a continuity of care there. And so I would definitely recommend you check out our partners at Claimable. You can check them out by going to our link tree here, otplinks.com, and you'll scroll down. You'll even see a code that you can use to save a little bit of money, but it's a very affordable process when you consider the cost of these medications. I believe it's about $40 to fight an appeal. And they got about a 50% track record of getting patients back on their GLP-1 medications. We've got several hundred people watching between TikTok and YouTube and Twitter. I want to just say thank you. If you're not following me, here's my plea to ask, just hit the subscribe button really quick while you're watching. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications. All of those things help to train the algorithm to tell it that this information is helpful. So if you think what we do here is helpful, that's my ask of you today. If you could use our sponsors for something that we've talked about, you can do that, but just it's completely free to hit the like button, to share this with friends, and to hit the subscribe button. All of those things train the algorithm. So please train the algorithm for me. I would appreciate it. Triple Digit Tick said, Claimable helped me on my Zepbound appeal, got Mounjaro approved in 10 days. It was easy and affordable. Claimable is hands down one of the highest value propositions in this entire industry. I always tell Claimable, I was like, hey, even if you didn't pay me to do the podcast, I would probably still talk about your tool, because it's actually one of those tools that Shape is the same way. Shed is the same way. That's tends to be who we talk to and work with to try to sponsor our podcast, or people who, listen, we'd be using your stuff and talking about it regardless of whether you were paying me. I don't think that's probably the best sales pitch to use for the podcast, but it makes it so that we're always connecting people with things that bring real value. And obviously Triple Digit TX saw the same thing same thing in terms of Claimable as well. So I appreciate that. Welcome, Miss Nikki. It's good to have you here. Calamity Jane, good to see you. DJ Meyer, all the OGs in the house. Really appreciate y'all being here today and spending some time with us on this beautiful Friday. I hope that you all have some great plans. I'll just share quickly that this weekend, my wife and I are going to take our oldest two sons to an Iowa football game. Iowa and Michigan State should be a good one. Really looking forward to that. It'll be our son's first time to a Iowa football game, and it's just an electric environment. They're very excited for that. What are you doing this weekend? Anything fun and exciting? Amanda over on TikTok wants to know, so what does doctor need to provide to get Zepbound approved through insurance for not weight loss? Well, I mean, Zepbound is approved for a couple of things, Amanda. It's approved for the chronic treatment of obesity, chronic weight management, we call it, with a BMI of 27 or higher, or a BMI of 30 with a a BMI of 27 or higher with a comorbidity, or a BMI of 30 or higher. Those tend to be the standard qualifications for insurance companies, although they're dinking with those a little bit. But I would also say that mild to, I believe it's moderate obstructive sleep apnea is another indication that you can get Zepbound for. Now, Zepbound has a sister drug called Mounjaro that is also approved for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. And so those are the indications. Some insurance companies will cover for other things like PCOS or inflammation reduction, but those are very few and far between. Having that diagnosis of obesity or moderate obstructive sleep apnea is going to be the best chance for you to get on Tirzepatide, Zepbound. Now, if you can't get it covered, triglycerides would be another one. High cholesterol, those things can help. These medications can help that, but it doesn't mean you'll get it covered. And even if you have obesity, it doesn't mean that it'll be covered, because as we were talking about, it doesn't mean that your insurance necessarily covers it, which is frustrating. But for many of those people, they're either going the cash pay route through Lilly Direct or NovoCare, or they're looking at compounded versions, which are a bit cheaper to afford. And you can check that out. Our partners over at Shed offer that. So all of that is available at otplinks.com. If you go to type that into your browser, otplinks.com. Now, if you're watching on TikTok and you're watching for the first time, please hit follow up here and send this. Let's try to get to 5,760 by the end of this stream. That's 2 more. You can't really see it on YouTube, but we've got a counter here. It's kind of bokeh out, but yeah. Oh, hey, see, we're all already to 59. So thank you for the follow, B. I appreciate that. Thank you. The last story that I wanted to cover today, which is going to probably get mixed reactions in the comments, is that today, if only for a brief moment, I'm not sure where it sits currently right now, but Eli Lilly touched a $1 trillion valuation today. That's the first pharmaceutical company to reach that number. Thank you for the follow over on TikTok. We are now at 57,760. So thank you for the follows over on TikTok. $1 trillion valuation. Lilly is just, it's a testament to Tirzepatide and its effectiveness at treating the disease of obesity and type 2 diabetes. It's also a testament to their ability to just charge a bunch of money. But you have seen them shift into from this, charge more and gatekeep as their manufacturing capacities have expanded. They're looking to get broader access for a more affordable price. And so we are slowly seeing the wind shift, and they're moving to more of a profit model where they're going to expand access, reduce the cost to expand access, and get more of a, let's call it a quantity, higher quantity of patients on their medication and make their money that way. So that's a good thing, but it's slow progress, right? But we'll take slow progress over no progress. Like I've said in my other podcasts over the last couple of weeks, it is incredible to me to have a drug that literally every day we hear something better about. We're hearing that these have neuroprotective benefits potentially outside of the weight loss. They have cardiac protective benefits outside of weight loss. They have liver protective benefits outside of weight loss. They have kidney. There's really no system in the body that these medications don't touch. And it seems to be irrespective of weight loss. And we get data that supports this every single day. And these drugs are still under patent, yet we are getting them as patients for progressively cheaper, not more expensive. And I think that is and more people are getting access to them as well. I think all of this is a positive move. Even if it moves at a snail's pace, it's still moving in the right direction and not the wrong direction. And I think that for many people, that brings a load of hope. I almost get emotional thinking about it, because as somebody who leads a community of over 160,000 people, hopefully it'll be more after today. And as you continue to subscribe and you listen and you share this, you're helping me grow this platform out. I would love to hit 200,000 across all platforms before the end of the year. And moving into next year, we have some big plans to support patients on Medicare. If you are a patient who is on Medicare, you're going to get expanded access next year. So we're working on a website right now, GLP1medicare.com. And that will be a wonderful resource for those of you who are on Medicare to get questions answered about these medications, how to get them covered, what to expect when you start them, how to prioritize protein and resistance movement to preserve muscle mass, all of those things. We're going to work with doctors to get really good information up on that website, but we got some great things coming. And so I think that the OTP community will continue to expand. But with that said, I carry a great burden for every single soul that follows the content that we make, because we just want you to be healthier. That's why we share the information that we share. Thank you for the follow over on TikTok. And I almost get emotional when I talk about these medications and the expanding of access, because every single day I'm sharing a new study that shows how essentially people are just going to live longer. One of the phrases we use all the time here on the Pen is getting your life back. These people are just constantly getting their life back, whatever that means for you. Maybe it means being able to walk through Disney with your kids, and that's been a dream of yours, something that once felt like it would never, ever happen. Maybe it means not using a seatbelt extender on a plane and having to go through the shame of asking for that. I know I've been there. Or even having the flight attendant look at you and just bring you one, right? I think of just people getting their life back, fitting into clothes they never thought they could. Being able to walk up the stairs, wrestle around on the floor with your kids. What does it mean for you? I know that means something else for everybody in this within the sound of my voice. But whatever it means, it can all be boiled down to getting your life back. And I almost get emotional when I share um, the cascade and avalanche of good news about these medications, because it is just helping so many people get their life back. And so thank you for those who are thanking me in the comments. Thank you. I am not who I am without you. You all are such a big part of who I am. You are everything about what OTP is. And I say it all the time. I couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't do it without you. So you all make this, all your likes, all your shares, all your comments, all your follows and subscribes are what afford me to be able to do this every day. And I get a great deal of personal satisfaction about waking up and putting everything I have into the work that I do, so that our community has better health outcomes, and that our community is able to get their life back. A couple more questions I'm going to jump in and take. Do you think that the Novo stock is going to rebound as it continues to crash and burn? Lilly is on fire. I do think that we will see within the next, I would say sometime next week, more than likely, we're going to get data on the Alzheimer's study for Rybelsus. If that shows that Rybelsus, the oral, which is the weaker version of semaglutide, can slow the progression of Alzheimer's, even if it shows it, even if they don't meet their endpoint, because again, this is the weaker version, the oral version. If Novo is able to show that Rybelsus slows the progression of Alzheimer's, their stock is going to go berserk. And I think that just opens up a whole new world of possibilities to these medications. Linda is looking forward to a new channel dedicated to Medicare patients. I've actually started it on YouTube. If you want to go over and follow it right now, if you just look up GLP1medicare.com, I think it's, gosh, I'll have to see what I titled it. I don't know, but I'll throw it up in my link tree. For those of you watching after the fact, you can go to the link tree and check it out. But I've already started a YouTube channel. I haven't put any content up there, but I'll be pushing people there and to the website within the coming weeks here. Calamity said, thank you, Dave. You've been one of the few to remember type 1 diabetics and exist and are having success on these medications. Sorry if I pester you too much. Calamity, you are actually somebody who I thought of last night thank you for the gifts over on TikTok. You're actually somebody who I thought about last night when I was writing this article, because I know that you have been, you were just the other day in one of our videos saying, hey, what is there for data on this stuff? And I felt so happy to read that study and know that, hey, I've got something for you. And so, make sure that you're subscribed to our Substack, because we try to cover all of the news that I think is pertinent, that you don't already know, or that might empower you to have better conversations with your doctor. We try to share those on Substack, which is, if you don't know what Substack is, it's just a newsletter. There's a social media element to it, but for you, if you don't want to learn a new social media platform, don't be scared of it. Just type in obesity.news and put your email in. It'll just come to you as an email update, like a newsletter. But usually, instead of like a newsletter style format, it is going to be just like an article. And it'll go right to your email inbox. And so if that sounds like it would be helpful for you, you can get there by going to otplinks.com, where all my links live. But you can also just type in obesity.news into your browser, and that'll take you right there to our Substack, where you can put your email address in and become part of the OTP community on Substack, and to become part of our email newsletter. I just want to thank you all again for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you follow along if you're on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, please hit the bell for notifications. We go live as we are able to, and there will be more and more of that in the coming days, weeks, and months. You may have already noticed there's been an uptick. I'm doing this full time now. And so now that I'm doing this full time, we're going to be working this, and we'll also try to schedule it, because I know a lot of you are like, hey, if I knew you would have been live, I would have been there. For right now, it's a little bit hit or miss, but I will be changing that in the coming days and weeks. So, but for now, hit the bell for notifications, so you make sure that you get a notification. Dreamweaver has a question over on TikTok. I'd love to see what that question is. And once we take that question, then we'll shut this down. If you have any questions on YouTube, the last chance to throw your question in there as well. So thank you again for all that you have done for me. And the fact that I get to do this all day, every day, is a absolute gift. it is an absolute gift, and one that gives me a great amount of joy to be able to do. I couldn't have imagined 2 or 3 years ago that I would be doing this full time, that you all would have given me the platform that you have. But I'm just so grateful, eternally grateful. How much Wegovy would someone equal to Tirzepatide? They're different drugs. I mean, Tirzepatide is a GIP medication. It doesn't have very much GLP-1 in it. It's like 5-to-1 GIP to GLP-1, where semaglutide is a very powerful, straight up GLP-1 receptor agonist. So oftentimes, if you're switching from Tirzepatide to Wegovy and you want to go to a higher dose of Wegovy, people will struggle with that because GLP-1 is a very, very potent peptide. And it can be a little bit, frankly, it can be a little bit more harsh for people. So you want to go low and slow if you're switching over to that. Maybe talk to your doctor about starting on a lower dose of Wegovy if you're switching. Conversely, if you're on a high dose of Wegovy, switching to Tirzepatide or Zepbound or Mounjaro, typically you don't want to start all the way at the bottom with Tirzepatide. But those are all conversations you need to have with your doctor, because they're definitely not a 1-for-1 swap. GLP-1, semaglutide is a very powerful GLP-1. It's very close to your endogenous GLP-1, but it lasts a week in your system instead of just like 15 minutes. Where Tirzepatide's mostly GIP. They're similar hormones, nutrient stimulated hormones, but they do have different mechanisms, and they work on different receptors in different areas of the body. So you definitely want to be careful and to not overdo it with the semaglutide if you're not used to it. That can be a very harsh transition for people. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. Couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't do it without you. Until the next one, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for all the subscribes and follows today. Thank you over on YouTube for those who have done it there. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter's like low key. If you're on Twitter still, I would highly recommend that you give me a follow over there, because there's a lot of the nerding out happens over there. So you're missing out if you're not following me over on X. So we'll check out the next one, my friends. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Have a great weekend, and God bless you.